Whether you have celiac disease or you're just trying to be gluten-free, sometimes the holiday times can be a little challenging. But listen in for tips and tricks on how to make that a little bit more manageable for you and the guests that you may be hosting over this holiday season.
Yay Networks.
A quick note before we dive into today's podcast. If you like what you hear, I would love for you to subscribe to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, wherever you download your podcast. It would also be incredible if you take a minute to rate and review this podcast. Those things do matter and they really help us. I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. The holidays are happening, y'all, and it's one of those times of the year that I think so many of us, we look forward to that time with friends, with family who we don't always get to see. There's so much celebration, there's so many events, and there's also so much food and drink for us to enjoy, to try, to experiment with, new recipes. And for someone who's really trying to keep things in check nutritiously, there can be a few landmines there. There can be temptations. There can be things that, we have our mindset and, here's what I'm going to try to achieve nutritionally. But then we've got all these other things sort of like calling our name, pulling on our attention. And that those landmines can be even more pronounced for someone with food allergies, food sensitivities, things like celiac disease. And it's one of those things that a lot of people, they may not want to lead with it. They may not want to inconvenience maybe the host who's having that event or whatever it is, or not feel like they're causing problems or stirring anything up. But the reality is, for that individual who's going through the holidays, what can we do as the host, or maybe people who are, we're the ones bringing foods to the gathering? What can we do that is food and drink that still tastes amazing, but can also be accessible and pleasurable for them? And then for the individual, what are things to be on the lookout for? What are things to kind of be on guard about? And how can you prepare and kind of fortify yourself and maybe plan ahead and bring things along as well to help make things easier? So to help me in this conversation and sharing this information with y'all, I am joined by Lauren Berry. Lauren is one of our lifestyle dietitians with Ochsner Health. She is our supervisor of our lifestyle nutrition department. Lauren has been with us in some capacity for almost 10 years now, since 2014, first with our Eat Fit nonprofit initiative and our work with restaurants, and now as our lead dietitian in our lifestyle nutrition department. And so welcome, Lauren.
Yay. Thank you so much for having me.
So
I'm
Lauren,
excited to talk about this.
I know
with you.
It's so much fun. And we have a really solid team of dietitians, y'all. So Lauren has been at our fitness center, Ochsner Fitness Center, for years, our location over on Clearview Parkway. And just as you and I are recording this is just your second weekend to have opened our basically our first lifestyle nutrition clinic inside of Stone Creek Spa on the North Shore.
Yeah, it's been a really fantastic fit so far. Everyone there has been super welcoming, and I'm excited to bring our nutrition services to Covington on the North Shore.
And I believe it's technically Stone Creek Club and Spa, but it's a beautiful
Club and Spa, yes.
It's gorgeous. It is for those of y'all who are in the North Shore, you probably already know about it. If not, for just our listeners, Ochsner Fitness Center, which is where we've been housed for years, our lifestyle nutrition team and our Eat Fit team. Ochsner Fitness Center is on Clearview and Metairie, or technically Harahan. And it is we just had a renovation a couple of years ago. So it is also stunning, beautiful. If you haven't been in lately, I encourage you to go. And then the same thing, Stone Creek on the North Shore, it's sort of like, if you were going to dream up how you would want to design a club, it's just beautiful. And the people are so welcoming. And so it's been just a really great fit. And so now our reach with our in-person nutrition consults has expanded.
Mm-hmm. And then we also do offer virtual visits here within Louisiana, and then also within Mississippi. We're licensed in both states.
And so I mentioned that we have a really strong team of dietitians in our lifestyle nutrition department inside of Ochsner. And so Lauren Berry being one who's on with us today, and also Kelly Migliori. And she's also worked with us in a lot of different capacities, including Eat Fit and now client work. And Alexis Thompson. Alexis has been with us for more than a decade now. She's just a really strong dietitian. And actually, what we're talking about today, specifically things around food sensitivities and gluten specifically, she's genius in this.
Yes, she's our go-to.
She is our go-to. So we weren't able to have Alexis on for this. So Lauren is graciously stepping in, but you'll hear us talking a lot about Alexis. We do have a lot of her favorite product recommendations and stuff like this. So what I'll say is just a shameless plug. Like if you are looking for guidance for a gluten-free diet, Lauren and I are going to be covering a lot of information today. And if you need that personalized guidance, we want you to reach out and consider scheduling some time with Alexis. And so I'll include it in the show notes, but the email is nutrition@ochsner.org. So just the word nutrition at ochsner.org, which is OCHSNER.org. Again, I'll put it in the show notes. That takes you straight to our scheduler who can kind of give you all the rundown on different package pricing, what's available, will insurance cover it or not? All of that stuff can help give that guidance. But Alexis is definitely our go-to. And I mean, obviously, Lauren and I have both been dietitians for a long time. For me, more than 2 decades. We're going to guide you through a lot. And then if you're looking to take it to that personalized level, she's our go-to for like really just the ins and outs. She actually had essentially, it was people who are as close to her as family who are celiac and like really incredibly sensitive to gluten. And so between her being a dietitian and her having that as kind of part of her immediate like life, it was something that she's so versed in.
Yes, we can't say enough good things about Alexis.
So with gluten, when we're talking about gluten, there's several different layers. And Lauren and I were kind of talking earlier. We won't go too much into this because if you're listening to this, you probably know which category you fall into. But people avoid gluten for different reasons. Some people must avoid gluten. They have celiac. They will have very severe reactions to it. And it's something that they don't really have a choice. They need to avoid gluten. Other people choose to avoid gluten because they feel like they feel better when they avoid gluten, but it's something that if they do have something, if they have a regular bread or something containing gluten, it's their world's not crashing down around them. They may feel a little bloated. They may feel a little discomfort, but it's not such a severe reaction as somebody with celiac. And so, there's sort of, you could just say relatively three categories, but if someone has celiac, then we need to make sure that's going to be a different conversation. In some cases you'll hear that we talk about than if someone has an intolerance or sensitivity to gluten. So if you're not sure, talk with your physician. There's different tests that can be done, different levels of testing also to either test if celiac is suspected, other tests that might be done to confirm a diagnosis. But something like celiac disease can absolutely be tested and confirmed if someone has it. Gluten intolerance and gluten sensitivity are a little bit more subjective. And, but again, as a listener, you would probably know, I had somebody tell me just the other day, it was a guy and he was like, when he doesn't eat, his diet is very bread heavy. And when he doesn't eat bread with his dinner, he feels so much better. When he does eat bread, his wife is like, you look like you have a baby in your belly,
Oh my goodness.
And so anyway, those are just kind of knowing the different ranges there. And so with that, Lauren, what are some of the areas of guidance that you would say to someone if they're coming into you, the holiday landmines that really jump out to us that someone's struggling with, either as the individual who has, choosing to avoid gluten or must avoid gluten, but also for the hosts? What are some of the areas for us to kind of like dive into that are the issues, and we can talk about some of the solutions?
Yeah, I would definitely say desserts come to mind first thing. The holidays are heavy on the dessert. And so I know that can be a pain point for a lot of people that are gluten-free. But even, going to the holiday party, are you bringing a dish? Could your dish be gluten-free? Just as another option for someone. Maybe you're not gluten-free, but someone else is. And then Even just going out to eat, oftentimes people really celebrate and dine out rather than eat in. So how can you make sure that you're ordering and making sure that your dish is actually gluten-free? And even having that conversation with the wait staff.
In some
Um,
restaurants, it depends. Some are really good about knowing exactly what ingredients are in it. We were actually on vacation with Brad's family a month or so ago, and one of the restaurants we went to, Brad's sister Tracy can't have cinnamon. She gets just really sick if she has it, and show's over, day is lost. If she has it, and so I was so impressed. Like the person says, "Are there any food allergies or sensitivities?" At the table, and we noted cinnamon. And it was a lengthy menu. He knew every dish that contained cinnamon. And I'm
oh
like,
my goodness,
and
that's
that,
amazing.
right. Because you would think, yes, gluten, or he may know the ones that are vegan or vegetarian, but even something like that, that was such a very specific ingredient and maybe not super common, is something that can
Hmm.
cause that reaction. Okay. So going to desserts, I guess we'll start at the sweet and we'll work our way back to the savory. I think that like a couple of things come to mind. One, like you said, if you're going to a holiday event, there's often kind of a whole spread of sweets there. And so if you're attending an event, thinking through, like Lauren said, if you're bringing a dish, well, obviously, if you're the one who's dealing with, a gluten sensitivity or intolerance or celiac, that's your opportunity to bring a dish that's an appropriate fit for you. But if you're the one hosting that event, we ask in each of these kind of categories that we'll talk about, whether it's sweets or pies and pie crust, rolls, casseroles, all the different things we're going to be talking about, thinking through a little bit, do you have someone who's coming who does have a reason that they need to avoid something like gluten? And how can we accommodate it? I think years ago, it used to kind of receive an eye roll if someone said, oh, they can't have gluten or whatever, they're vegan or they're avoiding dairy. And sometimes people may not be, in the past, I felt like there was more of an eye roll or people felt less of a need to be accommodating. Now I feel like it's shifted a bit. But
Hmm.
yeah, I think sometimes in the restaurant or the food industry space has shifted. But sometimes when we get back to those family recipes that we've always prepared the exact same way, we kind of forget about
Right. It's
accommodating.
hard to think, yeah, how can I accommodate this for my guests?
Right, right.
But there are a lot of really great products on the market now that actually taste great, are a little bit more nutrient dense, and are gluten free. So some things, you may switch out a flour or not, right? But even having things that are already done for you that you can just purchase and use.
And the gluten-free section in stores has grown a lot. And then if you're baking these sweets, so again, we're starting at the bottom, we're starting at the end of our our party with our
Sorry.
sweets. And no, I love it, and we'll work our way back. But if you're making the sweets, a lot of times what that recipe is going to call for is all-purpose flour. And so,
Hmm.
like Lauren was saying, there's different flours out there. The two that are the most common are almond flour and coconut flour. And the almond flour is like a very high moisture content. The coconut flour is very low moisture content. And so a lot of times your recipe substitution, if you're doing a baked good, may not be 1-to-1. It may not be, if you're calling for a cup of all-purpose flour, it may not be a cup of almond flour. It might be a little bit less. So you may need to adjust the moisture content a little bit. So what I would recommend is if you're going to experiment with a new recipe for something that's a sweets or a dessert, find a recipe online that's been vetted out to save yourself a little bit of headache or time, and then try that. And then you may see how could you put your spin on it for that favorite recipe. Lauren, you have a website that you like a lot that's kind of a go-to for recipe ideas.
Yeah, Minimalist Baker. She's been around since 2012 doing recipes. And what I really love about, her website, she has a large filter option. And, obviously one of those filters is gluten free. And she has 75 pages, not just 75 recipes, 75 pages of recipes that are gluten-free, and some are savory, but others are sweet. So that can be a really great resource for if you are looking for those ideas to branch out, maybe try one of your favorite recipes, but make it gluten-free.
And one of the recipe websites that I love, so Minimalist Baker is one, and then the other is alldayidreamaboutfood.com, and that is Carolyn Ketchum, and I think she's joined me on this podcast at least twice before, but she's almost entirely gluten-free on her website, the recipes, beautiful recipes, and most of them are also low carb. And so something like almond flour, coconut flour, they're naturally more fiber rich, plant-based fats, and then lower carbs anyway. And so if you're kind of leaning to that, both of these websites would be great. And I'll link to that. And I'll also link to some of those past episodes that Carolyn has done. And so those will, just looking to see how could we do that. And then you may say, okay, I'm going to do just the flours. Like I'm just going to change out the white flour, maybe for almond flour, and I'll make those usual cookies or I don't know, whatever it is. It's like I'm thinking like rum balls come to mind, like whatever the things are that you're making. Or you may take it a step further and say, and I want to try to lower the sugar, and you can experiment with some different plant-based sweeteners. And these websites will also have options for that. So the sweets are one. One of the recipes that Carolyn Ketchum has is for cheese straws. Like, I love cheese straws. Have you had them?
I don't think so.
They look like they're pushed out of like a pastry bag. They sort of look like, you know how icing would come out of a pastry bag with a little bit of like a ripple in like the ribbon.
Yeah.
They're kind of like they're like that, but they're orangey in color and they have a shortbread type texture, but they're cheesy.
I'm going to have to look into this.
They're delicious, but they're also they're just like a, white flour. They're not sweet. They're a savory. They're like a savory baked good called cheese straws. And when, like being from Baton Rouge, when I moved here to New Orleans and people were talking about cheese straws, I was like, I don't even know what they're talking about. It's a straw made out of cheese. And I don't know why they call them cheese straws because, it's not like a drinking straw, but they're delicious. So she has an incredible recipe for that. So I'll link to that, but just scroll through these websites, y'all, and just get some inspiration. Let's work our way back from sweets to, I think another one, well, I guess while we're still in the conversation of sweets, is pie crust. That's one that I think if someone has just a sensitivity or an intolerance and you have a pie and a regular pie crust and you just had the insides of the pie and you left the pie crust behind, like that would probably be fine. But if someone has celiac and you had that close contact with it, it may not be okay. So with pie crust, there's some gluten-free brands.
Yeah, my favorite is Wholly Wholesome. Has some really great products. The dough that you can kind of make yourself, or even just a ready-made pie crust that's gluten-free.
And they're in the freezer section usually. There's box mixes for pie crust too. But I feel like if you were going to do a box mix, you could also just almost as easily make it from scratch. The Wholly Wholesome has the gluten-free. And as you and I are recording this, I don't know if the episode that I did on a gluten-free pie crust is going to be out yet or not. But if it is, I'm going to link to it in the episode notes of this. But it's, so Lauren, the cereal is Catalina, Catalina Crunch, and they have the cereal, They have the cookies and all that. So they have the honey graham cereal, and it's basically like,
love that one.
It's just a neutral almost. And so you take that and you pulverize it like in a food processor, and you basically turn that into graham cracker crumbs. And then
so good.
It's like 2 cups of that of the crumbs, only 2 tablespoons of the Swerve brown sugar I used. And you don't need any other sweetener because that cereal itself has, I believe it's either monk fruit or stevia sweetening that cereal. So the cereal is sweet. You grind it into it's a crumb. So it's just like graham cracker crumbs. You put a little bit of that brown Swerve because it kind of gives that molasses flavor to it. And then either coconut oil or butter. And it's just those 3 ingredients. And so it's literally just that and crumbs, a little of the brown swerve, and then butter or coconut oil. Mix it together, press it into your pie pan, bake it for 7 minutes. That's it. And you can freeze it after you bake it. You can freeze it. Like I have one in the freezer right now in case I happen to make a pie over Thanksgiving. But it's like beautiful. It's delicious. So I did this segment that we recorded last week was with Brooke, the meteorologist with WGNO.
Yes.
And she's like, Molly, you know that I don't really bake. And I'm like, I promise this is so easy. And she was like, 1-1-1, mix it up, press it in the pie pan. She's like, this is truly so easy, you know?
Wow.
And it's delicious. It's like, it's really good. So those are things that even if you're like, I'm not a big, baker or whatever, those are just like some easy things. And literally it's just, instead of buying graham cracker crumbs, you're buying something like the Catalina Crunch cereal and making your own graham cracker. So it's some of those things that we'll be talking about as we continue to go is some of like easy swaps like that you can do.
Didn't you make like a berry crumble bake? I love that one. Is that one gluten free? Did you use almond flour for that?
No, you're right. It's a cobbler.
Oh, the cobbler. Yes.
Yes.
That one is so delicious. I can't even remember what you made it for, but I was like, that's really good.
I think we definitely did it for a TV segment. Maybe it was with Ben, or you know what? Maybe I just decided to make a cobbler because I remember I felt like I needed to present it with oven mitts on both hands. Like I made a cobbler.
Like, this is my product.
I think I was just very proud to have made a cobbler from scratch with my oven mitts, holding it fresh out of the oven. But yeah, it's really good. We actually did it for Brad's family at 4th of July when they all get together. I think we did maybe one blackberry and one raspberry or something, or blueberry. And yeah, you're right. I'll link to that too, because that's like a really good holiday thing. And you could do peaches or berries or whatever.
Yeah. And from what I remember, it's fairly easy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's more ingredients than that pie crust I was saying, but very, very simple. Like it felt very adult to make, but the steps are very easy. And this is like, so just y'all thinking like, if whatever's your usual, thinking through, okay, could I find a recipe that used almond flour instead of white flour? And part of the reason that like I love almond flour or a little bit of coconut flour is like when you make these bakery items with it, they still have that like kind of a silky texture. They still have a really nice texture like your normal bakery items do. It's not like if you were trying to make a cookie and instead of a shortbread cookie, you were using whole wheat flour, you're going to have a grainy thing. But if you're using almond flour, like you don't even notice it.
Right. And it's a little bit more nutrient dense than that just white refined flour. So even if you're not trying to appease for, the gluten-free crowd, just do it for your overall health and the health of your guests,
Right. And
another thing. Oh,
no, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to mention another easy option would be Swerve. They sell cake mix. Like if you're just trying to, hey, you got to make some like cupcakes for the class and they need to be gluten-free because one of the kids has celiacs in the class, like already store-bought. All you got to do is grab the box and it's just Swerve sweetener, but with almond flour.
It's already done for you.
Coconut flour, like you don't have to worry about, what ratio am I doing? It's done. All you got to do is like add the eggs, the oil, your normal, cake box mix stuff.
Or if you're like Lauren and you're making these Swerve brownies also for your own birthday. We had something with our team a few weeks ago and Lauren was like, oh, I'll make the Swerve brownies like out of the box. And we're like, that's perfect. And that had been like beforehand. And that was going to be like her contribution. And then as it got closer, we realized, oh, wait, that's also Lauren's birthday. I'm like, perfect. She's making brownies. So then we brought
They decorated.
Right. It's like you made your own brownies for your own birthday. But it's, we did a taste test with several different brownie mixes and we brought them to people like all through our offices and people who just normally like would say, I don't want something that's a healthier option than that. If I'm going to have a brownie, I want a real brownie. And the Swerve box mix was like hands down a favorite among that. And they have brownie mixes, they have chocolate chip cookie, and then they have white cake and like chocolate cake. And so
Mm-hmm.
those are things like Lauren was saying, you can do cupcakes with that, or a lot of recipes start with a box of cake mix.
Yeah.
Well, then you can never turn it into a healthier option if you're using traditional cake mix. But if you use the Swerve cake
Mm-hmm.
mix, it opens that up. Yeah. So thanks for that reminder, because that's like an easy go to. And now we're seeing it in just like regular stores, like, your local grocery stores are starting to carry it. You can get it online, but it's Swerve. They make sweeteners, but then they also have these box mixes that just like really take the work out of it for you. Um,
Yeah.
as we were talking
Absolutely.
about almond flour, that's also kind of shifting over to casseroles. That's one that if you're doing a casserole that calls for breadcrumbs, try switching it out for almond flour. And we have a recipe that's kind of like our family has made for years, and it's like a shrimp and eggplant casserole. And normally the original recipe was just like, a cup or two of breadcrumbs in it. And we
Mm-hmm.
switched it for almond flour. Cannot even tell the difference.
I love that.
Like I had my dad try it, everyone tried it and they were like, this is delicious. They would have never known.
Yeah, and it's so special too. Like a lot of these recipes, they bring you back to like
Right.
childhood even. And so while you're trying to make things a little bit more nutrient dense and a little bit, healthier, or just removing that gluten ingredient because you get bloated after having it, you still don't want to miss like that
Right.
nostalgia from having those recipes. So switching out an ingredient and testing it out, but you'd be surprised. A lot of times you really cannot tell the difference.
It's so true. And that's one where, I mean, like, this is a dish that like we've had like my whole life, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the recipe for it was like, my dad had it as like on the back of a paper bag. And so, that someone had handwritten. And so it's just been around forever. And then for anyone in our family to not even be able to tell the difference. So with that, something like almond flour, you can buy it at any grocery store from Walmart to Whole Foods. Usually you're going to see it where it's like blanched and it's just kind of the white of the almond flour. Every once in a while, you might see something called almond meal and it has a little bit of the skin still in there. If possible, don't get that because it's really
Mm-hmm.
that almond flour that's going to be just that like white fine texture. Also on like the casseroles, if you were doing, so if your casserole calls for crackers, like ground crackers in it or breadcrumbs, try it with the almond flour. Now, what I would also recommend on these things is do a small batch before it's the night before everybody's coming over to your house. And
Right.
like just make sure it's gonna work. But because we don't want to be responsible.
I don't want to ruin your dish.
Right. But for the most part, you've got a pretty good chance it's going to work. But it would be good to do a little test recipe first, just have it, enjoy it, and then, okay, no, yes, this works. You can feel good about it, and then serve it over the holidays. Other casseroles, a lot of times it might be something like a macaroni and cheese, a baked macaroni and cheese, and stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. And so there's Banza is a very one of the more popular brands, but like chickpea pasta, it's kind of like the almond flour. It still has that white look. It doesn't look gritty and grainy like whole wheat flour, but they have all the little elbow shape, their shell
Mm-hmm.
shapes and stuff. And so using that to make your baked macaroni, it's once you've got everything else in there, like I would be surprised if anyone's even going to know it.
No, no one's gonna notice. And there's even lentil pasta too that can be another good alternative for that.
And then you'll see there's also others that might be like
Mm-hmm.
black bean pasta or red lentil pasta or like
Like
edamame.
corn flour. Yeah.
And the colors will be different. But like if it's just your regular lentil pasta or your chickpea pasta, like the Banza, we've actually like my father-in-law was over here and we had a mac and cheese made with that. And he was like scarfing it down. He's like, this is so delicious. And then I'm like, I'm trying not to laugh, but what's
You're
happening?
probably giggling.
Yes. And so we're just sitting there at dinner and he's talking about how good it is. And the smile is like coming off my face. Like I can't hold it in.
Yes.
And then he's like, what? Like, cause I'm like it's oddly smiling, like while we're all eating. And I'm like, do you think we're really serving you like regular mac and cheese here, like in our household? And he was like, what is it? He had no idea because once you had that sauce on there, you're not going to know it. And so if you are doing something like a baked mac and cheese, try it with something like the Banza pasta. Again, you can get that at places like Walmart, Costco, all those places. Costco comes and goes of what they have, but like Walmart will have it. Try it with the shells or the elbows or whatever it would be, the penne. And just, again, do a test batch and see, give it to a few people. And then I will be really surprised if anybody can tell. And then, and those are things that if you've got that baked mac and cheese that someone's always making now, if someone, is avoiding gluten, then it's going to be a great option for them. If someone's looking for, a lower carb option or whatever, these things can also offer that solution for people. Anything else on the casserole front? That's like a common, I feel like pasta, breadcrumbs, and crackers are the common carb.
Yeah, sometimes like a gluten-free oat flour could be a good alternative. Someone is like possibly nut.
Yeah.
If they have a nut allergy.
Yeah. Good point. And then crackers. I guess if you were going to do crumbled crackers, because sometimes things do call for crackers, like I think about like oyster dressing may have like crackers crumbled over the top and kind of like baked onto it. And so we can go through, we have a really detailed list of some of Alexis's favorite crackers. So I'll turn it to you to share some of the favorite cracker options.
Yeah, so some of these, she has like the Blue Diamond almond nut thins. Those are just really readily available. Mary's Gone Crackers, which is personally one of my favorite brands. It's just a really nutrient dense like seed cracker, but then there's also other varieties of that are very similar to like almost like a Ritz cracker even. And then Nabisco actually has like the brown rice thins, and even like Crunchmaster has a protein sea salt cracker that could be a really great option as well.
And I think if you were like, okay, what's going to work the best to be like crumble over something like a casserole, probably something that's very neutral, like the Blue Diamond almond nut thins or those Crunchmaster crackers, or maybe the Nabisco brown rice thins. Those are some that can kind of be like crumbled maybe over the topping of it and kind of gives like a more of like the saltine cracker type thing. But all of those that Lauren was just saying, like if you're going to have like cheese and crackers, just have some of those out there, and it gives options.
And that's where like the Mary's Gone crackers, if you had like a charcuterie board or anything like that, just switching out the crackers, super easy. Didn't cost any more money to do that than it would if you would just had a regular cracker on there,
Trader Joe's, I just saw like a couple of weeks ago, they have one that is just like Mary's Gone crackers, and it's called like Super Seed crackers or something like that. And, I think like a lot of times it's the regular manufacturer that is making a product for Trader Joe's and then branding it with the Trader Joe's brand. So I wonder if it's like the Mary's Gone crackers.
The same.
Right. But then branded in that. And so I didn't compare the price point, but I would imagine it's a little bit lower for that at Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's, yeah.
But those are all good options. And another could be like the cheese wisp, like the like little cheese crackers, Parmesan cheese crackers. And so, and actually that could be really good over a casserole, depending on what the casserole is.
Or even like that mac and cheese.
Yes.
Little crumbles of that.
Yes. There's Parmesan.
I love mac and cheese.
There's all different flavors. Like the Wisp brand has some that even have like some level of like heat in some of them. And so anyway, lots of different options you could do there of like cheddar or Parmesan that could work for either, like Lauren was saying, like a charcuterie board or crumbling over the top of a casserole or a mac and cheese, or just kind of pairing it with, just kind of like little snacks that you have out for people when they get there. Okay, so we talked sweets, we talked casseroles, we talked pie crust, we talked crackers, breads.
Breads.
Yeah. That's a hard one.
Well, because some of the gluten-free brands, like you end up you're like, this is cardboard. Like, what am I eating? Right. And so finding one that you actually enjoy can sometimes be a little bit of an undertaking.
And some of
But some of them,
them
go
are
ahead.
strange too. Like they're just like the ingredients to make them gluten-free are odd, and it's
Right.
like, yeah.
What am I eating? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But one that comes to mind that is kind of a fan favorite is from Base Culture. So I enjoy like their 7 nut and seed and the original paleo bread. So that one is gluten free.
I love it also, especially like toasted. And it's something you'll find in the freezer section. And the ingredients are like almond flour. I think it's almond flour, almond butter, eggs, and flax. They're sort of the core ingredients of their brand. And so it's real ingredients. All of the things are things that you would have at your house, but most of us aren't having the capacity to like make a sliced bread ourselves. So from in the freezer section, that Base Culture bread. I mentioned the All Day I Dream About Food with Carolyn Ketchum, and I'm going to link to the podcast that she and I did. It was either last year or the year before. And in that, she talks about two breads. Oh my gosh, Lauren, they're delicious. One is a rosemary focaccia.
Oh my, wait, I tried that one when you made it.
I thought I was going to ask if you did. Yes.
Delicious. Yes.
It's so
highly
good,
recommend.
It's one of those, again, like you would put it out there and people aren't even going to know like it's any better for you, but it's an almond flour base. It's got some olive oil, the rosemary. It's rosemary garlic is how she does it, like a rosemary garlic focaccia. I left the garlic out just so that, wouldn't carry that garlic around with me all day. But rosemary focaccia is one that she has that is just like, it's perfect for holiday season because you can make it a little thicker and you can kind of have it in a bread basket and it's like really beautiful. But it's also something that you could just have year round as an option for having that bread with dinner. And then I mentioned she's got the cheese straws, which are kind of more of like a little bready thing, but I'll put the links to all of those things. And then sourdough bread is one that, there's a lot of times people have just kind of like realized that, wow, when I eat traditional, like, more like artisan sourdough bread, I don't really have any side effects. I don't have that bloating or I don't have the discomfort after I have bread. But whenever I have just regular commercial store-bought bread that has gluten, they're feeling like really uncomfortable and like whatever their side effect may be. And the difference in that sourdough bread still has wheat flour, and so it still has gluten in it, but it's a very long fermentation time. And so something like normally, like if you're buying commercially made bread, like that's just in the store, they're using like a fast acting yeast. So they're using wheat flour, fast acting yeast. The whole process is very like almost instantaneous. It's baked and then it's sliced and it's put into the package for us. Whereas something like the sourdough, part of the whole process of it is like that proofing. And so you hear people with their sourdough and their sourdough starter, they're feeding their starter. And then when it comes time to make the bread, they're pulling a little bit of that starter and then they're putting that with their flour and then they let it sit for a really long time and then it rises. And what happens during that long fermentation time is the yeast that's in it, it's like actually collecting like natural yeast from the environment, from the air. So there's not any yeast added to traditional sourdough bread. It's like water, flour, and salt, but it's collecting yeast from like the environment around it and using that natural yeast in the air to ferment it. And that long fermentation process, that yeast is naturally helping to digest some of that gluten. So people will find if they do a sourdough bread, they don't have a reaction so much. And that's part of why is that long fermentation process. But a lot of times they'll wonder, well, is it a different type of flour or whatever it was? But it's typically that so when something's been long fermented, which seems weird in bread that you think fermented, but that's kind of what it's referred to as, or that long proofing time. I had one lady that would tell me when she made bread, she would put it in her car and basically used her car like a hot box to proof her bread. And she would
Wow.
leave it in there for a really long time because then it was like breaking down the gluten, and then she would bake it. And then,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so she was like involving her car and everything into things to make a more digestible bread for herself. But so that's just something like, again, we talked earlier about the differences with like full celiac versus someone who simply has the intolerance or sensitivity. Someone who is diagnosed with celiac probably still is not going to be able to tolerate sourdough bread. It would surprise me if they
Mm-hmm.
were, but someone who just has that sensitivity or intolerance and not full blown celiac, a lot of times that sourdough may work.
Yeah, that's a great option. I just love sourdough bread too.
Oh gosh, it's so good. You know, Tracy, Brad's sister, makes it on the
Mm-hmm.
regular. So we're like always the grateful recipients. So we talked about all the things that are sort of what to anticipate if it's a holiday party, a gathering, an event, or something like that. Are we ready to shift over to Alexis's favorites, her kind of grocery list? If you've got somebody staying with you, like what are her favorite cereals to keep on hand for them, or maybe like pancake or waffle mixes, just
Yeah,
some
I think we did a
staples.
good job covering, so I'm good to move on for sure.
I think
So okay, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I always appreciate, like, you know, when I would go stay with my mom and she would say, "What do you want me to get from the grocery store for you?" And I'm
Yes.
like, "Thank you," you know, because a lot of the things that maybe were her regulars, she knew that wasn't going to be something that like was as appealing to me, maybe on certain things. And so I think that's just a very generous thing to ask if someone's going to be staying with you for a few days. And not that you have to be, we're not saying you're anybody's like short order cook or that everything is like special, but it's just a generous offer like, hey, is there anything you want to make sure we have on hand, you know? It,
Yeah, and I think it's something also, maybe you're bringing your favorite whatever as well, if you know
yeah,
maybe that host
doesn't
can't
happen.
get that for you,
Right.
you know? But
Um, what about breakfast cereals? She has like a couple of really good ones in her list here.
yeah. Okay, so I'm just gonna read them off. The Catalina Crunch, also one of my favorites. It's also keto friendly. So that cereal, Magic Spoon, they have a bunch of different varieties of different flavors. My favorite's peanut butter. They're kind of like Cheerios, but it's Magic Spoon instead. But that one's normally only available online. Three Wishes, I1 Organic, so IWON Organics is another great brand. And then K's Natural, and that one specifically, the honey almond protein cereal, is also a gluten-free option.
And K's Naturals for years was like the only option around for something like that. And so the Magic Spoon that Lauren talked about, it's the one like they've got all different varieties like chocolate or berry or these, and it's kind of little O's. And it's a little bit more like I don't know, kind of like like the berry one has a little bit of a Fruit Loop feel to it. It kind
Mm-hmm.
of it has the texture of more of that type of a Fruit Loop type texture to your cereal. The Catalina Crunch has so many varieties of flavors that I never even knew about. But if you look at their website, they had sent sort of a care package to me a few months ago, and so I brought a bunch of them into the office for Lauren and our other dietitians. I was like, wow, like they have. First of all, totally digressing from cereal for a second, but they have like, they call them sandwich cookies, but they're basically Oreo style cookies. They have some that are vanilla or some that are chocolate, some that are peanut butter, but they have like a chocolate mint. And that's not usually my
Yes.
thing. I was like, and I had one. I'm like, this is like a thin mint. I was like, this is delicious. But so they have all different varieties of flavors of cereal. And so the Catalina Crunch, like Lauren said, is naturally low carb. It's also naturally gluten free. It's, you know, keto friendly for someone who's watching their carbs. It's a good source of protein. And then
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you'll find it in places like Costco, or you can find it online or their website. But I would say like Catalina Crunch is probably my favorite, followed by Magic Spoon from a
Mm-hmm.
experience standpoint.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree. And also not cereal, but Catalina Crunch, the ranch, like almost like
Trail mix.
yes, it's like a trail mix, but it's all like kind of like Chex Mix.
Yes.
I brought that home. My husband ate the whole bag because he was like, what is this stuff? It's really good.
It's so good.
I was like, do not eat all of my snacks.
That's a good one that you like to put out for a party. Like if you've got
Yes.
somebody who's like
Yes.
celiac or watching their gluten. Yeah, you're right. I didn't even think about that. But like it's like a Chex Mix, like Lauren was saying, and they have a spicy version, a traditional version, a ranch, and then they have a cheddar cheese, which is actually on my list. I was like, I need to order some more of that because I love it. Because I love like the salty crunch of like a Chex Mix.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you. That's like another little snacky thing you could put out for someone, or again, just have as like your own snack. So breakfast cereal, I feel like is one to just like if you've got someone staying with you through the holidays that maybe has different food needs or food wants, and watching their gluten is like one of them. See if they're a cold cereal person, because not only can those be great with whatever milk they choose to have, which is a whole nother conversation to ask them, but they could also be good toppings over things like yogurt or cottage cheese or something like that.
Yes, that's what I was about to say. If that person doesn't eat all of this and then you're left with it and you're like, I'm not a cereal person, what am I going to do with this? It is like a really great alternative to granola.
And then if you're going to do pancakes or waffles like one morning, there's different mixes.
Yeah. Like Kodiak Cakes is a really great brand. Just make sure you're choosing that gluten-free option. And they have like the mix, but you can also buy, just those toaster waffles that are also super easy. Flapjacked gluten-free, and that one's going to be a protein pancake, or the baking mix that you can also make. So those are two really great brands that are awesome.
And then Swerve has their pancake/waffle mix also. So, depending on what your store has, the Kodiak mix, the Flapjack mix, or the Swerve mix. Sometimes I find these things in the regular section, like if you're a grocery store, like if you're looking by your pancake mixes, they're right there. And that's my preference because that's where you're looking. Sometimes those stores have separate, quote, like healthy aisles. And so look there if you don't see it by the usual things, but Swerve, Kodiak Cakes, and then also Flapjacked. That's one that like, my friend Amy. And so every time Amy is in town, like Brad loves making pancakes. Like it's sort of like the thing, like if Amy's in, ooh, let's make pancakes. And so that's something that maybe isn't what you do on the regular, but over the holidays, it's sort of a fun thing to do. And again, there are those options there if somebody's got to watch their gluten. I think that we've done a good job of covering these. One thing that we did want to share with y'all too is supplements. So I didn't tell me the name of the supplement that you've had several people share about.
Yeah. So this supplement was I love learning from our clients that come to us. And this one person in particular was like raving about, it's called Me and My Gluten Assistant. And essentially she took it because she accidentally ate gluten. She was at a party and she didn't realize that there was gluten in this one recipe. So she took this and it relieved her of her symptoms. Now, this person in particular did not have celiac, so she was just gluten intolerant, tried to stay away. She has symptoms after she eats gluten. So that could be an option, but I would also just kind of add in that, proceed with caution. Certain things are not FDA approved. There's even, studies that may advise against this. So I would just say proceed with caution. But tolerase is that gluten digestive enzyme that was actually in that supplement, as well as amylase, which is kind of helping digest carbohydrates. So that's kind of what that supplement is made up of. And it may be a good option for you if you are one of those people that, like Molly said earlier, I eat bread and then all of a sudden, or she didn't say this, but that client that ate bread and then all of a sudden looked, 3 months pregnant. So just another option to throw out there.
And so
I would, yeah.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
the Tolerase G that Lauren was talking about, it was something that I looked at that. And so looking at the ingredients on that, the amylase, which breaks down carbohydrates, and then the Tolerase G is what's the other ingredient in there. And it's it's a trademarked, it's the, like, like the street name for something. It's not like the actual enzyme name, but Tolerase G, I started poking around in it, and you can see it and find it in other products that all have some degree of, hey, take this to help you digest gluten, And so the My Gluten Assist is one, but then there's a bunch of other products that contain this Tolerase G. And so essentially with it, there's any of those supplements are, or we should say most of the supplements are, you know, they're the responsibility is on the supplement manufacturer, really, to be sure that claims are accurate, that products are tested, products are safe, and all of that. The government and the FDA just doesn't have the oversight to ensure, like, that every single thing that's out there is effective and meeting the claims that it does. When you have, again, someone who has that sensitivity or that intolerance, it's likely that taking something like My Gluten Assist or another product that has Tolerase G in it as the ingredient, it's called Tolerase, like tolerant, or you're tolerating the gluten, but it's called Tolerase G. It's possible that if you just have a sensitivity or an intolerance, that it might help you, just like it says, tolerate those foods better. But again, for someone with full-blown celiac disease, this is probably not going to help to resolve that. And it's likely that you could have, like, a very negative reaction to consuming the gluten. So we don't want someone to think that if you have celiac, you can eat gluten if you take something like this. But if you have just a sensitivity or an intolerance, or just kind of feel like that, then, this might be something. And so on this, there's not something that's going to be dangerous about taking these. I mean, digestive enzymes, they're just helping our bodies to potentially break that food down a little bit more effectively. And so if you're taking something like a supplement that claims to help you digest gluten better, you're not likely going to have an adverse reaction to that product. The worst thing is it may not help to digest the gluten, and you would still have that reaction to the gluten that you would normally have, but you're not going to have a negative consequence just from that supplement. The negative consequence would be from eating the gluten, which is what you would have had anyway.
Right.
And I would say that only the biggest risk of it is that you're wasting your money, and that you're taking something that's not really going to be effective, but there's not something harmful in here, I guess is what I'm trying to say. These enzymes in here, they're not harmful. They just may not be effective for everyone. But it is something that could be worth trying if you do find that you just have that discomfort and you want to, maybe that sourdough bread is a little bit better, but if you took something that has that Tolerase G in it, maybe then you don't have any symptoms, So that's just one thing we wanted to share with y'all, that those things are out there and they could be worth experimenting with.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anything else for us to share, kind of leave people with, like a overarching?
I would just say, if you are struggling with gluten intolerance, or you don't know what issues you're having or what's triggering your responses, go see a dietitian. We can kind of help further dig into what could be potentially causing you those issues. And even if you are gluten-free, talking through, I know we mentioned a few specific products here that you can try, but talking through when you should eat those things, how much of those things you should be having within your diet, specific to those goals that you're trying to achieve, all of that a dietitian can help you with and be more individualized by that one-on-one consultation.
You can feel like it's opening up so many more doors for you. Because I think sometimes, like, it can feel very limiting if you feel like you have to avoid something. And, like, personally, like, I so dislike the phrase, like, I can't have that.
Same. I hate it. I'm like, let's not talk about what you can't have. Let's talk about what we're adding in.
Yeah.
You're gaining all these different products and you get to experiment with these different recipes. We're not hindering ourselves or making ourselves better,
And so if you're like, that's just too much for me to navigate, it's overwhelming, all the options out there. Again, working with that dietitian can like really narrow that focus for you and really help to kind of give you some of the, like a specific, like actionable, okay, try these things, do these things. And then if you're one that's like, I'm not going to make anything from scratch, no matter how easy you tell me that pie crust was, Molly, I'm not doing it. Okay, well, we've got other options for you. You know, there's like, there's so much to personalize it. The last thing that we actually didn't touch on, but I think, you know, you just mentioned like if you've got a gluten sensitivity or whatever that is, or you're not sure what it is that you have, our team, our lifestyle dietitians also offer food sensitivity testing. And this is something, you know, we've done a full podcast on that also. And so I'll actually link to that as well. But that's separate really from the gluten conversation. But that's sort of like if you don't know what's going on, maybe you have certain reactions that like you don't know why, but you're debilitating like muscle pain at times, or you have hives at times, or migraines, and you just can't. You've been to an allergist, you've tested, and like, you know, nothing else is turning up an answer. Something like that food sensitivity test can help us identify. So instead of our team having to do an elimination diet that we're just kind of like guessing, it can kind of help us like hone in and like really focus in on like getting to the answer, hopefully a little bit faster. So I'll link to that too. But all of those are just resources to know that they're there.
Absolutely. And what I'll say about food sensitivity testing and the results, it's going through the protocol. I mean, all of my clients that have been through it, and myself as well, it's like the answers to your prayers, right? It's like when nothing else works and when you're like, I don't know what to do. Why am I feeling this bad? Seeing those results and then going through the protocols and being able to pinpoint what are those triggers, it's a miracle, right? And it's a blood test. It's not you spitting into a cup and mailing it off and being like, okay, what are my triggers? It really is a blood test and testing over 170 different foods and chemicals, and how is your body, your individual body, responding to those. So really great stuff. You know, if you're like, I've taken out gluten and I'm still feeling really poor, you know, what else is there to do? That could be definitely an answer for you.
So you've got a lot that we've covered, y'all, a lot of some heftier things to give thought to, and then some just really easy, fun things. We'll put the links to our favorite recipe websites for gluten-free things. We'll put the recipe to that pie crust I was telling y'all about. The if I can find that cobbler, I'll dig out that cobbler recipe.
I was going to say, don't forget about the cobbler.
Yes, the cobbler, the cheese straws we talked about. So lots that we'll be talking about there. We'll include how to contact our lifestyle nutrition team. It's nutrition@ochsner.org. And then we'll also link to the food sensitivity page if somebody wants some more information on that. And Lauren, I thank you so much for doing this with me. It's always so much fun to talk through this like with y'all than just by myself. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to be here. But Alexis is your go-to girl for all things gluten.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right. Bye. Have a good one.
Always grateful for Lauren in so many ways, and especially for joining us to talk through gluten-free holidays in this episode. I'll include the links that we talked about in the show notes of this episode. And, you know, always let us know what you think. As you incorporate some of these things, try them out. You're experimenting maybe with new recipes or new products this holiday season, and or you have certain kind of go-tos that have been great solutions, great resources for you. I always want to hear about it. I am registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. And if you'd like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.